October 1348. A merchant ship drifts into London's port, sails dark with salt and death. The crew lies dead below deck, faces black and swollen. Half this city dies in 6 months. This is how the Black Death killed half of London in 1 year. Stay with us. Keep watching. London in 1348 was England's heart. Largest city north of Alps, 70,000 souls. Narrow medieval streets twisted between timber houses leaning close, upper floors touching. The Thames flowed thick with commerce, choked with ships from Flanders, Gascony, the Baltic. Merchant guilds controlled every trade, from fishmongers to goldsmiths to spice merchants. The air smelled of wood smoke from hearths, sharp leather from tanneries along the riverbanks, fresh bread from bakehouse ovens, roasting meat from cook shops, and the stench of open sewers. People lived shoulder to shoulder in wooden tenements, families of 10 in single dirt rooms. Privacy did not exist. Children played in filthy alleys where pigs rooted through garbage. Rats were everywhere, thousands slipping through walls, nesting in roofs, feeding on grain. No one paid them any mind. They were as common as rain, as constant as church bells ringing. London had survived fires and floods before. It would survive this too, the people believed. The plague arrived quietly, invisible, carried in black rat fur and bellies of their fleas. It traveled for years from Central Asia, riding the Silk Road through China, Persia, Arabia. Italian merchants brought it to Sicily in October 1347. Then it jumped to French Marseille. By autumn 1348, ships docking in Bristol and Southampton carried death alongside bales of wool. And then it reached London. First cases appeared in the eastern docks near the Tower walls. A docker named John developed swellings in his groin, black lumps the size of hen's eggs. His skin turned purple and black as if bruised from inside. He died in 4 days, screaming. Then his wife fell ill. Then their 3 children. Then the neighbors. Then the next family. Then the family beyond that. The family across the lane. Disease leaped from house to house. Within 2 weeks, the entire street was infected. Within 1 month, the entire parish was dying. No one understood what was happening. They only knew that death spread faster than any fire. The fleas jumped from dying rats to humans, biting exposed skin on ankles, wrists, and necks. They injected Yersinia pestis bacteria directly into bloodstream with every single hungry bite. Within days, victims developed buboes in lymph nodes, painful swellings that grew like apples. Dark purple blotches spread across skin like spilled ink. Fever soared until people went mad. They ripped off clothes and ran screaming into streets. They vomited blood. They coughed blood. They bled from eyes and ears. The stench of gangrene filled entire streets before death came. Some died within 24 hours of first symptoms. Others lingered for a week in agony. Their bodies rotted while their hearts still beat. Medieval medicine had no answer, no cure. Doctors could only watch their patients die. The disease spread with terrifying, impossible speed. London's dense, cramped medieval layout became a transmission trap, spreading plague everywhere. By November, panic gripped London like an iron fist. Entire households fell silent overnight. Bodies piled in narrow alleys and doorways. Not enough gravediggers left alive to bury them. The living painted red crosses on infected doors with trembling hands, then fled to countryside. But there was nowhere safe to run. The plague moved faster than horses, leaping street to street. London's dense layout became a death trap. Timber houses packed tight, shared wells, shared ovens. Fleas rode on clothing, on goods, on bedding. In the very air people breathed in their homes. People watched neighbors die, knowing with certainty they would be next within days or hours. Terror paralyzed the city. Markets emptied. Streets fell silent except for the cries of dying. Those who could afford to flee did so, taking the plague with them to untouched rural villages. The poor had no choice but to stay and die, watching their families collapse one by one slow. Medieval minds could not comprehend bacteria or understand the role of fleas and rats at all. Physicians blamed miasma, bad air rising from marshes, swamps, and rotting matter everywhere. They pointed to Jupiter and Saturn conjunct in the heavens, a celestial omen of divine wrath. Preachers declared it God's wrath for human sin, for pride, for greed, for lust, for vanity. Doctors prescribed bleeding patients with leeches, which only weakened the sick and hastened death. Some physicians wore strange beaked masks stuffed with dried flowers, rose petals, and herbs. They believed sweet smells would ward off corrupted air and protect them from the contagion. Nothing worked. Nothing helped. The rich fled to country estates, spreading plague to villages. Many unknowingly carried the plague with them in their baggage, in their clothes, on their skin. London's entire infrastructure collapsed. Markets closed their stalls. Law courts stopped meeting. The Guildhall emptied. Business ceased. The city that thrived on trade became paralyzed by death. Records show more than 200 Londoners died daily at the plague's peak in December 1348. This was December 1348. The worst month. Bodies everywhere. Death everywhere. Terror in every house. St. Paul's Cathedral transformed from house of God into a hospital, then a morgue, nave filled. Priests fell ill while hearing confessions, breathing the same contaminated air as the dying. Families buried their own dead in back gardens and vegetable plots. Churchyards had overflowed. There was no time for proper ceremony, for prayers, for mourning the dead as Christian law required. The living could barely keep up with burying the dead before they themselves fell ill and died. London's heartbeat slowed, then stuttered, then nearly stopped. The city was dying with its people. Mass graves were dug at East Smithfield and beyond the city walls in fields that once grew wheat. The dead were stacked 5 bodies deep in enormous pits, layered with quicklime for decomposition. They were buried without ceremony or prayer or even names. There simply wasn't time for rituals. New bodies arrived faster than the old ones could be covered with earth and forgotten by living. The gravediggers themselves often collapsed and died mid-task, thrown into the very pits they dug. Death had become so common, so omnipresent in every street and house, that it lost human meaning. Life and death blurred together. The living looked like walking ghosts. The city seemed dead. The smoke from funeral pyres darkened the sky for months. The Thames ran thick with ash and debris. Winter 1348 brought no relief, no mercy from the cold. The plague raged through Christmas and New Year. Entire neighborhoods were abandoned as if cursed by God. Houses stood empty, doors swinging open. No one dared claim the belongings rotting inside for fear contagion lived on every surface and cloth. Packs of stray dogs, gone feral, roamed the silent streets feeding on what they found in houses. The few survivors walked through a city transformed into a necropolis, a kingdom of the dead alone. Funeral pyres burned day and night, darkening the winter sky for months with thick black smoke. The Thames ran thick with ash and debris and the bodies of those who had no one left to bury them. London in winter 1348 looked like the end of the world. And for half its people, it was exactly that. By spring 1349, the worst had finally passed. Not defeated, but simply by running out of victims. Between 35 and 40,000 Londoners were dead. Half the population gone in 1 year. Streets that had echoed with vendors and children now lay silent as tombs. Entire guilds wiped out. Families that had lived in London for 10 generations were erased as if they'd never existed at all. No descendants, no memory, nothing left behind. The survivors emerged into a fundamentally changed world. They barely recognized it as the same city. Labor was suddenly scarce and valuable for first time. Peasants who had been bound to land by feudal law now demanded wages for their labor and freedom. Serfs demanded freedom from bondage. Workers refused to accept the old terms that had bound them. The old feudal order, which had seemed eternal as the stones of the tower, began to crack and crumble. Within a generation, England's entire social structure would transform. The plague broke serfdom's chains. The Black Death killed millions across Europe, devastated entire nations, and emptied cities and villages. But it also broke the chains of serfdom and began the slow, painful march toward modernity and freedom. It changed who held power. It changed what labor was worth. It changed the world fundamentally forever. The plague reshaped not just London, but all of medieval civilization. Nothing would be the same again. In death came the seeds of freedom and change that would reshape Europe for centuries to come after. London emerged from the plague smaller, traumatized, but fundamentally different from what it had been. Walk through the city of London today, through the financial district with its glass towers and churches. You are walking over plague pits right now. East Smithfield was once a mass grave holding thousands. Beneath modern office buildings and coffee shops lie bones of people who died in agony centuries ago. Construction crews still occasionally uncover them during excavations for new buildings and tunnels. The bones are stacked in neat rows, evidence of care even in the midst of unimaginable catastrophe. The Black Death reshaped London, killed half its people, devastated the economy, and left deep scars. But it could not kill the city itself. London rebuilt. London survived, and London grew even stronger. The plague would return 5 more times over the next 3 centuries, each time killing thousands more. The Great Plague of 1665 would kill another 100,000 Londoners in its final devastating outbreak. But by then, the city had learned something profound about endurance, about dying and rising from ashes. The city's ability to face annihilation and rise again is written into its very stones and streets forever. London has burned to the ground, drowned in floods, been bombed from the sky, suffered endless epidemics. Each time it rebuilds. Each time it endures. Each time it comes back stronger than it was before. The Black Death was London's first great test of survival. It would not be the city's very last test. Like and subscribe, because history's darkest chapters reveal what cities and people are truly made of.